This is F.D. Recovery, where we interview addicts and alcoholics.
Our aim is that through this podcast, we might help you on your journey of recovery.
Thank you for listening. Hello, this is Frank with F.D. Recovery, and it is July 14th, Monday of 2025, and this is going to be the weekly intention portion, and I'd like to introduce...
My name is Shelley, and I am an alcoholic and Frank's wife.
Good to know, good to know. So last week was boundaries, so we'll do a little recap of that, but this week is going to be goals. This week will be goals, very important, especially in recovery, but we're going to talk a little bit about boundaries. We are constricted to about 20 minutes, so we're going to try to make this happen as fast as possible. But I talked about it a little bit in some of the meetings I attended this week, and worked on it, and the whole importance of boundaries for me was it's a tough thing every day. I'm really struggling with it. This whole recovery thing and trying to be a better person is a really tall task, especially when you come from the world I come from. And so the whole boundaries piece was, coming from a controlling egomaniac freak like I know I'm capable of being, and I am at sometimes, or at some points, is a real shift of gears, right? So the whole boundary things is hard for me, and also knowing where I am, and navigating my own sense of priorities and feelings and things like that. And it's a tough one because you kind of have to know where you're at to kind of see your boundaries and other people's at the same time, right? And did you want to tell us a little bit about your experience with boundaries?
Well, for me, I tend to be a little bit of an open book when it comes to most things, and that usually didn't work for me in the past. And sprinkle alcohol on top of it, and that open book becomes into a memoir that nobody really wants to hear. So as I've gotten sober and have gained a little bit more life experience without that alcohol managing my life, I've learned to, not perfect at it, but knowing when to speak and when to share and when not to share, and really putting those boundaries on myself in an intellectual and emotional way of speaking. Not everybody wants to know what's going on in my life and, what's going on with me, but also learning to share when it is appropriate and when to open up. Finding that balance has been challenging, but I've noticed a huge difference in my present day in correlation with my past, and it's been working well.
Well, I know boundaries is a tough one, right? We just kind of had a little spat before we jumped on here, and
Sure did.
shared some emotions, gone through, some of these character defects pop up, when, especially for me, when I'm not rested, and my brain starts getting overload, and paranoia kind of creeps in for me, and I start thinking everyone's against me. And unfortunately, my wife gets the end of that, and as most of us do, our partners see the best of us and also the worst of us at times. And that whole boundary piece ties directly into this, is understanding what I'm going through is not necessarily what you're going through, and understanding the difference of that, and trying to meet in the middle and create that communication, because that's where those boundaries truly meet, right? When not necessarily just boundaries, but my situation meshing with your situation is a form of boundaries, and that's, until we communicate that, and the walls either go up or go down, and those boundaries get thicker in a negative way, or you can let down some of those guarded boundaries. And also, it also is really important for your recovery too, is creating boundaries as far as not just conversational, but with people, right? People that you may or may not know, someone you may have known from your past. But a lot of us that are in this alcohol and drug situation where we're trying to change our past, our lives, is a lot of people from the past end up coming back in, and that really takes us out, right? Whether it does emotionally or actually alcoholically or narcotically, where we find ourselves using again. And, throwing that in the mix of whole boundaries and understanding boundaries just as much more than just there's emotional boundaries, there's physical boundaries, there's intellectual boundaries. You have to learn how to respect these different facets of conversation and reality that you find yourself in with people. And um, I think for me, slowing down and and trying to put my ego in check is far by far the greatest tool that I have in my tool bag. I'm not saying that I'm expert at it or anything, but when I use it, it usually gets better, right? And so the whole boundary thing is a tough one, especially for us in recovery. For most of this is my experience. I don't know about you, but either I had no boundaries, meaning I was a fucking slut, right? And I was just whoever, whenever, so there was no real boundaries there. I never had respect for either your body, my body. There was this disconnect where I didn't really appreciate the sacred piece of some of these relationships, whether it be romantically or whether it be just a relationship like a best friend, things like that. It always led into a perverse situation where I never really honored the other person, whether it be getting really weird with a girl at the time and getting way too high and it just getting way out there, and then also with a good friend where I get way out there paranoid and I beat them up. So no matter what situation you could apply it to, for me with boundaries has always been a tough one because I've always seemed to never know where I stop and they begin and where the real reality was, because it gets so fuzzy because I'd be so paranoid, right?
Well, a
So
piece of that too is that you've learned how you understand what boundaries mean. Whereas back then you probably didn't have a real grasp, at least I didn't, on what that was and what that looked like in a healthy manner. So becoming sober and clean helped you recognize what boundaries are and how they relate to you on a day-to-day basis.
yeah, that's important because just learning about them. I mean, you even just learning what's going on with you, and just that alone is super powerful, right? And creating these navigation systems within yourself is super important. And I know we're getting a little close on time,
It's
but
a goal in your recovery to
so,
learn what boundaries are.
yeah, that is a goal. And that which leads us to our weekly intention of goals. Goals, goals, goals. You got something for me over there?
Let's see. Let me look up the definition here.
Stand by while we tap into Google, the AI edition.
Well, so goal is so broad and can mean so many different things. You've got goals and it's in sports, soccer, hockey, things like that. Also, the object of a person's ambition or effort, an aim or desired result, which would probably be the definition we're looking at when it comes to the recovery scene. Um, Goals are necessary in order to achieve, a healthy sort of sobriety. A goal is to one thing that pops up that I see here is when you're first wanting to get clean and sober, one of the biggest things is to detox safely. Just get back to the nitty-gritty, remove the emotions aside, and the bottom line is you have to get those drugs and those alcohols out of your system. That's a very important goal for most recovering addicts that they had to meet at one point in their lives, and that journey just continues to grow and those goals become a little bit more and a little bit more. Um, and it's amazing when you achieve all of those things and a lot of them in small steps. You hear one day at a time, 1 second at a time. there is so much reality in those phrases that I myself had clung to and can still cling to, especially on very emotional, overwhelming days, 1 second at a time, 1 day at a time. That in layman's terms is just a simple goal just to get through the next moment. And that has helped me time and time again.
So the whole goal aspect, um, it's you have to, if you have something in mind, and a person without vision is, it can really be a success. You have to have that vision. And what you mean is, if you don't have a capacity to see what you can grasp in the future, and you can't visualize it, right? And that's what goals do, is you put it in a here and now, whether it be a whiteboard, whether it be on a magnet on your fridge or whatever, just actual lists that you can write down, because so as you write, it will become, right. And it's just like, it's just like any other form of manifestation in this reality that we participate in, right. I remember in early recovery, it was some of the basic stuff, right. It was like, who help me stay clean, help me find housing, help me get a vehicle, help me find a job. It was
That's
all
hard though.
these.
A lot of
Yeah,
people that are first entering, they have absolutely nothing. And even if you're a middle-aged adult, that can be make or break it for a lot of
yeah.
people. Having all of that anxiety that, oh my God, you have to adult all of a sudden. In hindsight, it seems so simple, but when you're in the moment, it is monumental.
Yeah, and there's a lot of morbid reflection that can come with that, because one thing that I always kept, the pitfalls, as you would call it, I get to this point where, like, I should be farther ahead, or I should be this, or I should be that, and in the end, I'm just shoulding all over myself, right? And that was the big piece for me, is okay, I'm gonna stop this, because I am where I am, and I have to start there, right? I can't start in these imaginary places where I get bent out of shape because this isn't happening right, that isn't happening right, and I just kind of have to honor the process, right? And it's like, trust the process. When you comes back to it, is you gotta go step by step. And because the thing is the reason why we, for me, this is how it works, is, I manipulated my way to mostly everything, and I didn't have the skills to kind of keep it. And I've said this in the past, like, that's important piece, right? If you don't take those walks, if you don't take those bike rides, if you don't have those stepping stones before the car, for me, it was just like, I have to go through those homeless situations, drug addict situations, and then get back into recovery and got nothing again, because those are humbling. My pride is so big that I need those humbling situations, right? Because when I do have a car, I appreciate it a lot more, right? When things are just given to you. I know a lot of situations where things were given to me, and I was just a fucking spoiled brat in the end of it all. And trying to reroute some of that stinking thinking is a full-time job for me. And getting back to that state of gratitude and tying that shit in with my goals is, man, that's, if just one thing, foremost, is vision. If you don't have vision, you're going to have a real challenging time. You have to have vision. You got to see what you want, execute it. And that's the whole thing with goals, right? If you're out there and you're listening, and you want things, right? Start writing down steps to that goal. That's an important piece, right? And if you don't know the steps, Google it. If you can't Google it, you get with your support group, and you figure, you want to own a home, you hang out with own homeowners, you start talking to the right people. If you want to stay clean and sober, you talk to people that are clean and sober. And it's just, there's no it's not that complicated, right? So I know we got a 10-minute warning. When did you want to jump off this?
Well, soon. One thing I want to mention is, for me, those early goals of sobriety have been met. Now I have a little bit of time and sanity behind me that those small goals that seemed, again, so monumental that I mentioned just a little bit ago, is staying sober, getting a house over my head, getting a running vehicle, and maintaining all of those things, all of that has been great. But now, as you know, Frank and I had discussed before we got on, I have to start working towards those bigger goals that I have been neglectful of. And there's a lot of reasons why I've been neglectful of it. And I make all of these excuses for myself. But the reality is I've been able to stay sober for this long. I've been able to make all of these big decisions. And now this next big decision that I need to make and this next goal that I've been always wanted to happen, I've got to start putting all of those excuses aside, all of those character defects that just let me get in my own way. I'm not good enough. We can't afford it, this, that, and the other thing. I can start tackling those things, one issue at a time. And with the right support and communication, I know that it's achievable. For me now, that's, more or less reuniting with my son who hasn't been with me in a number of years. That's hard. It's an extremely hard thing for me to deal with on a day-to-day basis, but I have to deal with those emotions and everything that goes with it if I'm going to make any sort of reunification a reality. And it's just interesting to see how I've made all of these other little steps, how I revert to old thinking and behaviors and ignore and come and stuff those feelings that I don't want to have. Because what happens is that they build and they build and they build, and seemingly out of nowhere, you get an emotional breakdown in the middle of your lunch hour. Um, so an important reminder to those that are listening is that take it 1 minute at a time if you have to, because for me, especially in those big emotional situations, that's what's going to get me through it, among other things.
Yeah. You know, having those achievable goals are super important, right? That's why we got to have people in our corner, right? Telling us, hey, let's start with some of those small wins, because like things like making your bed in the morning, your personal hygiene, starting with the workout routine, things that are in your in the immediate future that you can really control, and you can wake up and make that first right choice, right? Because a lot of this stuff is really just momentum, right? When you and one the way you do one thing is the way you do a lot of things. I promise you that. So if you hit snooze in the morning, if you do all these immediate things from the gate, you're gonna most likely do that down the road. You're gonna go for that Kit Kat. You're gonna go for that Reese's. You're gonna go for that fried food. You're gonna go for those things that extra energy drink. You're gonna do those things because if you don't start your days off with goals and then the discipline to complete your goals, you're gonna have a real tricky time staying on top of it, right? Because it's like those, it's those small permissions, right? When you do those small things and later and it just gets out of hand, right? And then for me, I know if I have to stick to my diet, I do those little funky. I haven't had a Snicker bar in over 7 years almost, right?
Are you sure?
Yeah, 100%. But and then when I do have something like that, it's a treat, right?
Yeah.
I keep my low sugar stuff around that keeps it low calorie so I can satiate some of those cravings. But, sticking to my goals and sticking to my routines is an important factor to this, right? It's a key piece to this, right? And I don't say that to say, hey, if you're not doing it, then you should feel bad. No, I'm saying what you should do is start with those small wins. As soon as your eyes wake up, don't hit snooze. As soon as your eyes wake up and your feet hit the ground, do what you need to do. Go drink hydration. Do those things. Go take your vitamins right away. Do those small wins and then worry about your coffee. Do all those things that you take a shower, brush your teeth. Yeah, do all the stuff that that you need to do. And those are just small little wins. But then then you can start, maybe go to the gym the night before, put your stuff in your bag, or lay it out, just have this game plan, because if you don't live intentional, you'll be a victim, right? Because you'll be once you find the creator within, you will never be the victim without. Now, that was a phrase that was told to me years ago. I can't remember who said it to me. I think it was in jail. But when you find that creator within, you'll never be the victim without. So you have to create these scenarios that'll set you up to win, right? Because if you don't do that, in the end, you're going to fall out into these repeated patterns and go, oh, I'm a victim again. These circumstances got me, right? So this is going to be a short podcast. Thank you guys for tuning in. This is FD Recovery, and this week it's goals. All right, we'll jump on here and we're going to be trying to get some interviews lined up here again. So keep you guys in tune, and yeah. Do you got anything you want to say?
No.
All right. Well, thank you guys. My name is Frank.
Shelly.
And this is FD Recovery. Peace. Thank you for tuning in to FD Recovery. A reminder, be kind to yourself on this journey of recovery. Also, call your sponsor. Get connected to local support groups. And for one day at a time, stay clean and sober.